Welcome to China Truths. Today we will bring you the following stories. Rights advocates urge China to release bridge man protester on second anniversary of his disappearance. China's military drills encircling Taiwan backfired. In Beijing, Russia's defense chief hails shared views with China. Trudeau's office blocked Han Dong's appointment to Commons Committee on China after intelligence briefing. Now, let's dive into the details. China Truths. Rights advocates urge China to release bridge man protester on second anniversary of his disappearance. Human rights organizations worldwide are calling on Beijing to release Peng Lifan, known as the bridge man, who disappeared after being arrested by authorities after staging a rare protest in Beijing 2 years ago. Peng hung two banners on an overpass in China's capital city in October 2022, criticizing the Chinese government and its leader, Xi Jinping. At the time, Beijing's zero-COVID policy sparked widespread discontent among Chinese citizens due to harsh lockdown measures. Since his arrest, Peng has not been seen in public, with no formal charges brought against him, raising fears that he may be subject to ill treatment or extrajudicial detention. International pressure is vital when human rights activists are forcibly disappeared, said Maya Wang, Associate Director for China at Human Rights Watch, according to an October 11 Human Rights Watch report. Concerned governments should use the anniversary of Peng Lifan's disappearance to raise his case and press the Chinese government for his immediate and unconditional release. On October 13, 2022, Peng, dressed as a construction worker, unfurled two banners on Beijing's Sidong Bridge, demanding an end to the government's draconian pandemic measures and the removal of Xi. The protest occurred just days before the Chinese Communist Party or CCP's 20th National Congress, an event that takes place every 5 years when the party makes political reshuffles and policy decisions for the coming 5 years, where Xi was expected to secure a third term. Beijing authorities quickly arrested Peng and censored all online discussions and media coverage of the incident. Social media platforms banned words and phrases associated with the protest, such as Sidong Bridge, Beijing, and Brave Man, in a sweeping effort to prevent the protest from gaining traction among the public. Despite these efforts, Peng's protest inspired what became known as the White Paper Movement. This movement erupted in November 2022 after a deadly fire in the Xinjiang capital of Urumqi trapped residents amid the pandemic lockdown, fueling nationwide anger. Protesters across 31 cities held blank sheets of paper to symbolize the censorship they endured, and many echoed the slogans from Peng's banners, calling for freedom, reform, and an end to the CCP's authoritarian rule. The anniversary of Peng's protest has reignited calls from human rights advocates and dissidents for global intervention. Several groups, including the Visual Artists Guild in Los Angeles, have called on the Chinese government to end its harassment of Peng's family and release him immediately. In 2023, the organization awarded Peng the Champion of Free Speech Award, recognizing his courage in speaking out despite the risks. Supporters of Peng, including overseas Chinese democracy activists, have also staged demonstrations outside China, urging the international community to hold Beijing accountable for his disappearance. On October 13, in Iceland, a group of activists gathered outside the Chinese consulate, demanding Peng's release and emphasizing the broader struggle for freedom of expression in China. 2 years have passed since Peng Lifan was arrested on October 13, 2022, and he remains missing to this day, said Zhou Feng, a Chinese democracy advocate and a member of the Chinese Democratic Party branch in Iceland. Feng accused Beijing of depriving Peng of the basic human rights to which every individual is entitled. Zhou told the Epoch Times that members of the Chinese Democratic Party staged protests on the same day around the world to support Peng, urging Beijing to disclose Peng's whereabouts and release him. He said Peng's protest was not just about one man's grievances but for freedom and justice for everyone. Today, we stand here not just to honor this courageous voice but to call on the global community to urge the Chinese regime to release Peng Lifan and end this unjust persecution, Zhou said. Today, we call for a global movement to raise a powerful voice, free Peng Lifan. Chinese dissidents staged protests on October 13 worldwide, including in cities in the United States, Canada, the UK, France, the Netherlands, Iceland, Japan, and New Zealand. Jieli Jian, an executive vice chairman of the Chinese Democratic Party branch in California, told the Chinese edition of the Epoch Times. Chinese authorities have intensified their efforts to quench dissent in recent years, detaining activists, human rights lawyers, and citizens who dare to speak out against the government. Beijing authorities also began recruiting additional security personnel, known as bridge watchers, to patrol city bridges in the aftermath of Peng's protest, further tightening surveillance. The Chinese government may have taken away the bridge man, but his arrest ignited widespread support for a free and democratic China, Wang said. 2 years since Peng Lifan was taken into police custody and forcibly disappeared, his message continues to resonate across the nation. Peng's disappearance is not an isolated case. In July this year, Fan Yirong, a 22-year-old activist, hung a banner over a bridge in Hunan province, calling for the Chinese people to reject autocracy. Fan was immediately arrested, and his whereabouts remain unknown. China's military drills encircling Taiwan backfired. China's decision to hold military drills encircling Taiwan has backfired, given the international backlash against such a move, according to Taiwan's intelligence chief. Tsai Ming-yen, Director General of Taiwan's National Security Bureau, briefed legislators on the Foreign Affairs and National Defense Committee on October 16 about China's Joint Sword 2024B drills that took place 2 days earlier. The Chinese Communists' military exercise has created a negative effect in that it made the international community more supportive of Taiwan, Tsai told reporters before his meeting. During an exchange with a legislator at the meeting, Tsai highlighted the Pentagon's statement, which he described as strong-worded in criticizing the Chinese government's military drills. Beijing deployed Army, Navy, Air, and rocket forces for its large-scale exercises on October 14, saying the military moves were intended as a warning to separatist acts in Taiwan. 4 days earlier, when Taiwan celebrated its National Day, Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te delivered a speech vowing to resist annexation or encroachment upon our sovereignty. Beijing sees Taiwan as a renegade province and has threatened to seize the island by force. On Wednesday, Chen Binhua, spokesperson for China's Taiwan Affairs Office, said in a regular briefing that Beijing will never commit to renouncing the use of force over Taiwan. Australia, the European Union, Japan, and the United Kingdom have expressed concern about China's latest military drills. The U.S. State Department and a group of bipartisan lawmakers have also criticized Beijing's actions. This military pressure operation is irresponsible, disproportionate, and destabilizing, the Pentagon said in a statement, adding that Lai's National Day speech was a routine, domestic-focused address, but Beijing chose to use the occasion to take provocative, military action. The top Republican and Democrat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee both took to social media platform X to express their condemnation. The CCP's military exercises around Taiwan are nothing more than intimidation tactics. No one benefits from the CCP's aggression in the Taiwan Strait, Representative Michael McCall, a Republican from Texas, wrote on October 14. These military drills around Taiwan are reckless, and I urge Beijing to stop undermining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait through these dangerous, unilateral provocations, Representative Gregory Meeks, a Democrat from New York, wrote on October 15. Tsai also told reporters that Monday's drills were shorter in time and smaller in scale compared to similar Chinese military drills in May, which were dubbed Joint Sword 2024A drills and lasted 2 days. The May drills occurred just days after Lai gave his inauguration address, during which he said China and Taiwan are not subordinate to each other. Despite the drills being smaller in scale this time, Tsai said China deployed more air assets. Taiwan's defense ministry reported that a single-day record of 153 Chinese military aircraft were in the island's vicinity from about 5 a.m. on Monday to 6 a.m. on Tuesday. China's Coast Guard also sent vessels to patrol missions around Taiwan on Monday. According to Tsai, the Chinese dispatched a total of 18 vessels, including 16 Coast Guard ships. Tsai told legislators that China's deployment of Coast Guard vessels was part of its gray zone tactics. He said Beijing intended to show that it had actual control over the Taiwan Strait. Aside from the military front, Tsai said there was a separate battlefield on Monday involving China's operations in legal warfare, public opinion warfare, and psychological warfare. On Tuesday, the Investigation Bureau of Taiwan's Ministry of Justice released a report saying that China was waging a cognitive warfare by spreading false online information on Monday, including claims that Taiwan's military had failed to respond quickly. Taiwanese Coast Guard officials were drinking alcohol on Sunday night, and ships carrying liquefied natural gas were unable to dock at Taiwan's ports. The Bureau asked Taiwanese people to be vigilant, noting that overseas cyber forces had been stealing user accounts and passwords of popular social media platforms used in Taiwan. We will continue to strengthen strategic communication and intelligence sharing with our international allies so that we can understand the political intentions of the Chinese Communist Party and related military developments in order to provide early warnings and respond to various situations, Tsai told reporters. In Beijing, Russia's defense chief hails shared views with China. China and Russia publicly reinforced their alliance as their top defense officials met in Beijing, rebuffing U.S. pressure ahead of an expected meeting between the leaders of the two countries in Russia next week. Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov met on October 15 with Zhang Youxia, the vice chairman of the Chinese Communist Party's Central Military Commission, a top military decision-making body chaired by the party general secretary, Xi Jinping. Belousov told Zhang that Russia and China share the same views, the same assessment of the current situation, and the same understanding of the measures we have to take together, according to a readout released by the Russian Defense Ministry. He described discussions with Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun the day before as very fruitful. Due to the efforts by Xi and Russian President Vladimir Putin, the two countries have developed a strategic partnership, Belousov said without specifying. Our task is to strengthen and develop it. In response, Zhang told Belousov that the Sino-Russia relationship has reached an all-time high and continues to develop healthily and steadily, according to the Chinese statement. Zhang urged both sides to deepen military-to-military relations and safeguard their respective national sovereignty, security, and development interests. Putin and Xi declared a partnership with no limits in February 2022, less than 3 weeks before the Russian leader ordered an invasion of Ukraine. The two leaders issued a 5,000-word joint document in which Russia endorsed Beijing's territorial claims on self-ruled Taiwan, and China backed the Kremlin in opposing the further enlargement of NATO, a key justification for the invasion. Since then, Beijing has refrained from publicly denouncing Moscow's action and has expanded its trade with Russia, reaching a total volume of $240 billion last year, thus providing Moscow with a vital lifeline as it was hit by Western sanctions. Belousov's visit to China occurred against the backdrop of China's war game against Taiwan. On October 14, when Belousov landed in Beijing, the Chinese military launched another large-scale military exercise encircling Taiwan. Beijing said the war game, involving its army, navy, air force, and rocket forces, was designed to send a strong warning against what it called separatist action by the independent forces in Taiwan, drawing condemnation from the United States, the European Union, UK, and Japan. On the same day, the Chinese Navy also conducted a joint drill with their Russian counterpart in the northwestern Pacific Ocean, where they engaged in combat exercises with practical firing, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. The top Russian defense official's visit also happened ahead of a potential meeting between Putin and Xi in Russia next week. Xi has accepted the invitation to attend the summit of the BRICS bloc of developing economies in Kazan, Russia. China's top diplomat Wang Yi told Putin, according to the Kremlin's account of their meeting on September 12. The Chinese readout published by its Ministry of Foreign Affairs has no mention of this detail. This year's BRICS summit is scheduled to start on October 22. On October 16, Russian Premier Mikhail Mishustin reiterated the warm welcome to Xi's upcoming visit. Next week, our leaders will meet at the BRICS summit in Kazan, Mishustin told his Chinese counterpart in Pakistan's capital Islamabad, according to the Russian readout. And we are, of course, expecting our friend, Mr. Xi Jinping. In response, Chinese Premier Li Qiang reaffirmed the two nations' bond and pledged to defend the specific interests of autocratic nations. China and Russia firmly stand by each other on issues that concern our fundamental interests, Li told Mishustin, according to the summary of the meeting published by China's Foreign Ministry. Our strategic cooperation is effective, and our practical cooperation continues to grow. Beijing has indicated it won't stop aiding Russia's war efforts after the United States imposed sweeping sanctions on almost 400 entities and individuals from over a dozen jurisdictions, including China. During a meeting with China's top diplomat Wang Yi in September, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken raised a strong concern over Beijing's support to Russia's industrial base as Putin pressed its invasion. According to Blinken, 70% of Russia's machine tools and 90% of its microelectronics imports come from China. Our intent is not to decouple Russia from China, Blinken told reporters after the meeting in New York. Their relationship is their business. But insofar as that relationship involves providing Russia what it needs to continue this war, that's a problem. It's a problem for us, and it's a problem for many other countries, notably in Europe, because right now Russia presents the greatest threat, not just to Ukrainian security, but to European security since the end of the Cold War. Trudeau's office blocked Han Dong's appointment to Commons Committee on China after intelligence briefing. The Canadian Prime Minister's office, PMO, blocked former Liberal Member of Parliament Han Dong from sitting on the Commons Canada-China Committee in 2019 after intelligence officials raised concerns about his actions, a senior official testified at the Foreign Interference Inquiry. Brian Clow, Deputy Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister, told the Foreign Interference Commission that around December 2019, Dong's name was proposed for membership on the Commons Canada-China Committee. He said that because of the concerns that officials had raised, PMO intervened and Mr. Dong was not appointed. Clow's testimony was released by the Commission on October 16, along with testimony from other senior staff in the PMO. Formed in 2019, the Special Canada-China Committee was tasked with reviewing all aspects of the country's relations. Its meetings have primarily focused on Beijing's human rights violations and aggressive behaviors, including the use of hostage diplomacy against Canadians. The PMO's intervention regarding Dong's appointment followed a briefing from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, SIS, to security-cleared Liberal Party representatives about concerning potential irregularities in the party's 2019 nomination process for the Don Valley North riding, which Dong was elected to represent. These irregularities include reports that buses were arranged to transport international students to the Liberal nomination to vote for Dong, despite not being residents of the riding. These students allegedly used falsified documents provided by individuals linked to a known proxy agent, according to an intelligence summary from SIS released by the inquiry. The summary also said that the students received veiled threats from the Chinese consulate regarding potential impacts on their student visas if they did not support Dong. Katie Telford, Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister, told the inquiry that she was briefed about Dong after the election but said that at the time, there was very little information available, and that at that point the level of Mr. Dong's engagement with the PRC, or People's Republic of China, was unclear. Testifying before the inquiry on October 16, Trudeau said that there are several ways a party leader can act on classified information regarding foreign interference, including vetting members for specific parliamentary roles or cabinet positions. If there is an allegation around inappropriate behavior or poor judgment or untrustworthiness, as a party leader, I can decide which committees an individual sits on or doesn't sit on, whether I give them a critic role, a parliamentary secretary role, or even a minister's role, Trudeau said. We have many tools to respond depending on the seriousness of the allegation. Trudeau added that if a member of parliament or MP is overly friendly with a consul general of a foreign state, they might be advised to end those relationships. The possibility of their consideration for a potential committee or parliamentary role would be revisited in the future if SIS confirms there has been no contact. Last year, Dong resigned from the Liberal caucus to sit as an independent MP following media reports that cited national security sources alleging Dong's close relationship with the Chinese Consul General in Toronto. Dong denied any wrongdoing and filed a lawsuit against Global News over the reports. In his previous testimony to the inquiry, Dong acknowledged that he was aware students from a private high school voted in the 2019 nomination contest in Don Valley North. He does not know whether all those students voted for him, but believes it is likely most did because he visited the school as part of his nomination campaign and encouraged students to support his candidacy by volunteering and/or registering as Liberal Party members if they were eligible, stated a supplemental document regarding Dong's evidence for the inquiry. Meanwhile, Dong's campaign manager, Ted Lojko, testified at the inquiry that he was not aware of buses specifically for students or international students during the 2019 Liberal nomination. He also said he had no knowledge of any campaigns where Dong may have solicited international students.